Welcome to Moss Marketing Mondays, aka the M3 Podcast. Brought to you by Moss Marketing Group, bringing you everything marketing every Monday. Stay tuned for marketing tips and tricks you can use today. The M3 Podcast, marketing knowledge to help you succeed. Let's get started.
Welcome back to the M3 Podcast. This week, we're lucky enough to have Dennis with Chick-In Waffle with us.
What's up, guys?
We have Jaime back for round two.
What's up, guys?
Pulled him onto another podcast, and then we got Ricky over here.
I'm back.
Back again. Thank you for joining us today, Dennis.
Thanks for having me.
So Dennis is another client that we work with and became friends with, and he owns Chick-In Waffle in Westport. And
Chick-In Waffle. That got me the first time.
Chick-In Waffle.
There you go.
In Westport. And then how many other locations are there?
So currently operating, we got two locations, one in Westport, one in South Kansas City. And then we have somewhere between 3 to 4 coming. The fourth one hasn't been announced yet.
Very cool. So we have recently partnered together on marketing everything. What was that? 2 months ago? 3 months ago?
Yep. I'd say about 2 months ago.
I've kind of lost track of time now.
About 2 months.
About 2 months now. And I thought it was pretty crazy, like when we first met, on like how Chick-In Waffle became a thing. Like,
yeah,
let's go back. Let's go back to the story of the start, or let's come back to that. Let's start at the full beginning story of Dennis.
Wow.
Let's
going way back.
Way back. You were born.
All right, I was born. Wow. So I was born overseas, actually. So I was born in the Holy Land in Bethlehem. I came here when I was about one and a half. I'm the oldest of 3. So my dad actually has an engineering degree and came here to be an engineer. And when he came here in the 80s, assuming there was some sort of recession, Reaganomics, whatever you might call it, and there just was no jobs for him. And so he's like, just going to open up a restaurant. So he ends up getting a location in Westport. And we'll circle back to that location. But he gets this location in Westport. His first restaurant was called Westport Sizzler. The problem is he liked the name, but the name didn't match what he was serving. He was serving Middle Eastern food in Kansas City in the mid-'80s with no other restaurants. I mean, there wasn't any Middle Eastern restaurants at the time that were in Kansas City. But anyway, he soon changed. Everybody assumed he was serving steaks because of the name Westport Sizzler. But he soon changed the name to Jerusalem Cafe, which is a little bit more appropriate to what he was serving. And he ran that same location for 30 years. So, of course, as I got older, I'm going to school. About 14 years old is when I start kind of working, bussing tables, washing dishes, become a server, become a cook, become a shift leader. But, my parents always said, we don't want you in the restaurant business. It's a lot of work. It's hard. We did this because we didn't have a choice, and we want you to go to college and be a lawyer or a doctor. That was my 2 options. So I was like, probably a lawyer. So I ended up, finishing high school. I went to KU and then partied my way back to Kansas City after a year, and then ended up going to UMKC where I graduated. And then after graduation, I was like, I don't want to, it was go to law school, right? I get my bachelor's degree, go to law school, take the LSAT. I get into UMKC. And then I'm like, it's just not for me. I don't want it. I felt bad as it is because they're spending all this money on my education. And then I was like, oh, I got to spend another probably $150,000. Just want to do my own thing. So I ended up moving to Florida and going into the car business. Started off as a salesperson, became a sales manager, finance manager, GSM. And I love the company I worked for. I learned so much, and there's a lot to learn in sales. Just how to deal with people, customer service, going above and beyond, managing a large staff and motivating people. And those are all things that I'm using today in my business. That company ended up getting sold. And the company that bought that auto group was going to have me start with them. And I was like, all right, before we transition, I need to go visit my family back in KC. So I come back to KC, and my brother had a couple motorcycles. And it was a nice day, and I was like, let's go riding. And so, mind you, this is my third time on a highway on a motorcycle. Like, I'm just not a motorcycle guy, but I thought it would be fun. And I end up getting in a really bad motorcycle accident. And I was in the hospital for over a month and a half, and I was in physical therapy and rehab and did that for 4 or 5 months. And so I'm sitting here, and I'm just, you start taking all these painkillers, you get super depressed. And, of course, life goes on. That company, cut ties with me. They didn't need me, honestly. I think they just wanted me there just to help them with the transition anyway. So it was probably going to be temporary. And so afterwards, I go to physical therapy. I'm on a cane, and like I couldn't walk straight. I was just in pain all the time. And I was just like, okay, I can't just sit here. I got to figure out what I'm going to do with my life. And so as I'm sitting down, I'm sending out, resumes and emails to just local dealerships because that's all I knew how to do. And an auto group here in Kansas City calls me in for an interview. And this is maybe my first time actually leaving the house for anything other than physical therapy. And I don't want them to see me on a walking stick, so I'm trying to suck it up. I had somebody drive me there because it was just easier. And then I get out and I'm, just trying to fight through the pain. I walk in, you sit me down. If I'm not on my feet, I could talk myself into any job, especially in the car business. And so anyway, I get the job, and I worked with them for 3 years. And while I was with them, I get married. Sarah, if you're watching this, I love you. And that's kind of where we're getting close to where we are today. So with Sarah, she's from Toronto, so she brought a lot to the table when it comes to this restaurant. I'll get into that story, but we ended up getting pregnant, or she got pregnant. She did all the work. And then while she was pregnant, I'm still going to I'm working at the dealership, and I'm coming home, and this girl is craving the weirdest, can I say shit?
Oh, yeah.
The weirdest shit, right? Stuff that she's never ordered before, never tried. And one of the theme here was sweet and salty. Like, so she doesn't really like Asian food, but that's all she was craving. And so one day I come home, and there's a package from Amazon sitting on the door, and I pick it up as I'm coming in, and it's a waffle machine, and I'm like, okay, all right.
I'm getting waffles tomorrow.
All right. So I'm like, what's this? She's like, I'm just craving waffles. And then she's making fried chicken at the same time, and then that's kind of where it started. And the next day, she's in the kitchen again, and this time she comes up with our signature sauce, which is the spicy chick sauce. She's like, which is basically, it's maple syrup, and it's infused with sriracha, and you add lime and cayenne pepper, and she puts it on this chicken, and she's just like, here, try this. And I'm like, all right, that's really good. It's got a kick. It's sweet. I like it. I've never had anything like this before. And we started toying with the idea of, let's come up with crazier stuff, and then, this could be like a hit, and then so we start coming up with more menu items, and sure enough, I'm still going to work every day, but we're basically coming up with an entire menu for a fake restaurant that doesn't exist. And then I have, graphic design is kind of a hobby of mine, so I'm jumping on my computer and I'm designing logos, and what do you think of this one? What do you think of this one? And I'm designing, what the conceptualized inside of a restaurant might look like. And probably did this for 6 months. This was just our thing that we did.
So timeline-wise, this isn't as long ago as when we first met.
No, this is so. 4 years, I guess. So we've been open in January. It'll be 3 years that the restaurant's been open. So let's say this is 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Because it happened over the course of that year. She got pregnant, and then we started planning this restaurant. And we get to the point where everything's pretty much done. And then that same restaurant that my dad had in Westport, that he had for 30 years, my brother finishes college and is like, hey, I'm going to take over that restaurant for my dad because, he's getting older. We want him to kind of enjoy life. He spent his whole life working hard to provide everything for us. And so my brother was like, all right, I'm going to pay him back this way by, taking a huge load off of him, which he did. And so when my brother took over that restaurant was dated. My dad's old school. He hasn't done much in 30 years, right? And a lot of people hate me for this, but I'm sure that was the charm of the restaurant. Everybody says, oh, that's what we liked about it. But everything's got to kind of evolve and scale and progress. And so my brother knew that, and he ended up right off the bat said, we don't have enough tables in this space. We don't have enough kitchen capacity in this space. And so he started looking for another place, but he never wanted to leave Westport. And he got lucky because he found a nice standalone building on Mill Street and Westport Road. It used to be a Qdoba, and they went out of business, and he took that space over, and it's 3 times the size and huge kitchen, and it helped them immensely. Well, he moves the restaurant over there, so now the space that's been there for 30 years still has a lease on it. They have a lease for the next 3 years or whatever. And so it kind of just, light bulb kind of went off, and I was like, let's just take it. It's perfect location. Westport, we're surrounded by bars. It's Chick-In Waffles. Like, it'll work. And so my wife freaking out, right? She's like, no, you have a stable job. We're making good money. Like, what do you mean restaurants? Like, you hate restaurants. That's why you never worked with your dad. And I'm just like, perfect. Listen, we're not going to do what my dad did, all right? Like, and I just feel like I always had, like, this crazy big dream, like, vision. And I would sit there and I would try to, like, I felt like I was trying to convince her to say yes, even though I already made up my mind, right? And I'm just telling her, I was like, just picture this. All right, we're going to open up the first one. We're going to franchise. We're going to have 50 locations all over the country. We'll have a distribution center. We'll have this and we'll have that. And we're going to make our own sauces and our own breading, and it's going to be great. Like, we'll be, like, huge.
It's going to be huge.
Yeah. And so I think the more she heard me talk about it and how, like, confident I was, it kind of calmed her down a little bit. And she said, all right, fuck it, let's do it. So mind you, I got a baby. At this point, the baby was just born. All right, Mia's born, and I'm still working at the dealership. So I got some money stashed away in a 401k, some money stashed away in our bank accounts, but I'm freaking out, right? I got a baby on the way. I need to buy a bigger car for the wife. And then I'm about to leave my job and then put everything that we have, our nest egg, into this restaurant. And so it was a little scary, but I wasn't sure when I wanted to do it. And I walk into work, and I give them my 2-week notice, and they freak out. And they tell me, oh, no, you can't leave us. You got to stay another month, another 2 months. We need to find your replacement. And I was like, you know what? Take your time, guys. Tell me however long it takes. And about 2 weeks after that, like, basically my 2 weeks, like, just things were moving fast with the restaurant. And I was just like, I'm wasting my time here. Like, we're dragging this. So we call it what it is. I leave the dealership, and we start construction. And so it's literally, we don't have enough money to buy or to hire a general contractor. And so it was so much DIY, me and my wife, YouTube and videos, how to do the top of the floor, the tiles, everything. That entire build out, you've seen Westport, from that ceiling basically almost got me divorced because we had one ladder, and my wife is up there, and I'm telling her, no, it's not straight, and we're yelling at each other, and she's trying to, she's semi-afraid of heights. So anyway, we got through it, and the restaurant opened, and so we opened in January. In March, I'm gearing up for St. Patty's Day. I call our food distributor, and I'm like, yeah, we got St. Patty's Day coming in Westport. It's going to be wild. Let's go ahead and order, 20 cases of chicken. I'm going to sell. I'm just excited, right? And so we put this order in. The order shows up a day before. I think St. Patty's Day was on a Tuesday that year, and it shows up on a Monday, and then COVID's kind of going on in the background during all this, but it still hadn't taken full effect. And then literally that Tuesday they canceled St. Patty's Day parade. Everything shut down. And I'm just like, oh, my God, what am I going to do?
I'm buying a chicken suit. I'm going to sell raw chicken.
What the hell are we going to do with this chicken, right? I got everything prepped. I was ready for this big day because they kept, everybody was kind of in denial. We're hearing other cities closing down, and Kansas City's like, no, don't worry. It's not going to happen. It's not us. We're good. We don't have that many, COVID infections or whatever it is.
I was running a gym in Westport at the same time, and we were going to do something big for the parade, and it was the day before.
Yeah, literally.
We're not doing it.
Yeah.
Everybody's like, what?
Yeah, they get and I'm calling Westport, the people in charge in Westport, and I'm like, we're still doing this, right? Yeah. It's still going on. Don't worry. Everything's going to be fine. And then you're right. The day before, I
feel like there was a lot of hokey pokey shit going on. That was the exact time I was starting all this. And it was everything was everyone was beating around the bush from a set answer on everything.
Everything.
Look, everybody's like, oh, we're not shutting down. We're not shutting down. We're not shutting down. Then all of a sudden, one day, get the fuck out of the building.
It's really everybody's shutting down.
Shit's closed. And everyone's like, oh.
Yeah. A month and a half in, we just opened, right? Yeah. I'm still all right. The first month was cool. The Chiefs win the Super Bowl, and there was a huge Super Bowl celebration in Westport that February. And it was cool because it drew a lot of people to Westport, and we're new. And so it was just organic traffic, people just walking by, partying because the Chiefs won, and then they come in and they like the food, and it kind of just snowballed. And then you have this, just slam the brakes.
So what'd you do with all the chicken?
Well, we ate a lot of it, but we sold some. So that second I was like, listen, failure is not an option here. All right. In the back of what I had always told my wife was worst case scenario. All right. We're young. If it doesn't work out, I can still sell things, right? I could still go back and any dealership would hire me. That's what I always told her. But I didn't believe that.
I feel like I'm almost talking to myself in the mirror. When I was starting this, I'm like, babe, what's the worst case? I go, dealership wise, that life is always there.
Literally
always there, no matter what. And being young, it's go out, take your risk, go do it. I'm luckily, same with you, made money in the car space to have the money, to have capital to go do something. And most people will just sit there and do that same shit their whole entire life.
I was burned out. I was burned out at the car dealership. It doing all these it's a lot of fun, but then there's also the mundane stuff, those meetings that you got to go to and never hitting the right number, and that's cool. It drives you to do better, but at a certain point, you're just like, what's for me? What am I building? What am I building for my kids? You know what I mean? They can't. I would love for them to inherit my selling abilities, but I can't. They're not going to inherit that, right? And so quickly I sat down and I had to figure out what I was going to do. And obviously we're like, okay, they can't come dine in, but we could still sell, online. And I didn't have that much of an online presence. So I quickly make sure our website is optimized. We're getting on DoorDash. We're getting on Uber. We're getting on Grubhub. I'm going to start the Instagram campaigns. And so why most people, my dad included, is sitting there telling my brother, listen, I've been through this before. I've been through recessions. You need to calm down, conserve your money. I'm doubling down, and I'm throwing, any income that's coming in, I'm putting it back into Instagram to get more people to see us. Because at that point I had 200 followers, most of them family that are on Instagram. And nobody knows who we are. For the other restaurants, that have been there before this, they at least have some sort of a following. So if a customer can't dine in, at least they'll find them online. With me, they don't know what they're looking for. I don't exist. I have to show up on people's radars. And so Instagram campaigns and Facebook helped a lot with that, and it would drive people. And then that's how we sold most of the chicken.
I think that's something also that comes from the automotive space, that the car business isn't like something that all of a sudden you just have a bad month. You're like, hey, we're just going to hold back. We're just going to see what happens.
Yeah, it
like,
doesn't exist.
It doesn't. And it's like, I'm very much a person that like time's slow. I double, triple down. I'm like, I'm already like at the drawing board. I'm like, okay, like I'm ready for shit to slow down because everyone pulls back. Like market share becomes cheaper. And did the same thing. Like people would have slow Decembers and Januaries in the car business. And like the first, I don't know, it was probably spring when I get out of college, that first winter comes around. I'm like, what if we like triple our marketing budget? Yeah. He's like, that doesn't sound like a good fucking idea at all. I was like, no, I'm telling you, I'm like, these are the numbers that we run monthly. I'm like, what if we triple it? I go, if these numbers correlate and we triple it, then we're not going to see a dip at all.
Yeah.
First, like December, January run by, like we run straight through it, no dip in anything. He's like, holy shit. Like, he's like, can you run that like all the time? So then that's when we started really scaling stuff. But it was like so many business owners, I feel, that pulling back on anything. I mean, I see it with people doing with employees. They're like, well, we'll just run a leaner staff. And I've seen car dealers were like, well, I was wanting to sell more cars. I'm like, it's because you have 2 fucking salespeople.
Yeah.
Like they can only do so much work.
What are they going to sell?
Yeah.
15 cars each a month? Like, yeah.
You get to a cap rate of what an individual can do. And it's the same thing with marketing expenses, all these different expenses that most business owners, like that is the worst thing that I feel that someone can do is you could scale a company through a recession. You could scale anything at any given point in time.
It's all mindset.
Exactly.
It really is. If you feel defeated, you're gonna be defeated. For me, failing wasn't an option. I couldn't fail. If going back to a dealership, I couldn't show a face. You know what I mean? I quit. I told these guys, no, I'm done. I'm good. Yeah. And they were like, well, where are you going to go? Everybody assumed I was going to go to another delership because that's what you do in the car business. Exactly. You go from one dealership.
Bounce around. Yeah.
I didn't. I've worked at 2 dealerships in my life, right? The one in Florida and then the one here. But they assumed I was going to go somewhere else. Probably somebody offered me more money or whatever it is. And that wasn't the case. I was like, no, I'm going to open up a restaurant. And they're like, you're crazy.
I'm going to sell chicken and waffles, bro.
Crazy.
Watch this.
You're making money here. Who goes to... You're going to trade one job with a lot of hours for one with even more hours and less money? I'm like, and then, most restaurants fail after the first year or whatever. I'm like, yeah, no, I've heard it all. Yeah, thank you.
Then everything's closing down, and they're like, oh, he's definitely going to.
Oh, no, for sure. I got text messages from people. They're like, how's your restaurant doing? From like the dealership. You want to come back? I'm like, oh, my God, no, I'm good, guys. Thanks.
And at that point, they're busier than they've ever been.
So we get super busy, right? All online. It is a lean staff, not because I fired people. I didn't have people to begin with, right? It was me and my wife and one other guy. And we just kept getting, busier and busier. And then they kept playing like, hey, we're going to open up after a month. Nope, it's going to be maybe 2 months, maybe 3. And then they keep and it was just back and forth.
It's just 2 weeks to flatten the curve, right?
That's what it was. Oh my God, I'm getting deja vu. Flatten the curve. Yeah, that's what it was. And so everybody has their theories on when we would be open. And I kept pushing. It actually helped a lot in the sense that, our menu from the day we opened to what it is now is completely different. Obviously the core is still there. We still serve chicken and waffles, but there's a lot of, things that we tweak to make it more online friendly, to make it more profitable, because we just had to. So I'm sitting there and I'm constantly tweaking things, and the fact that we didn't have dine-in gave me that time, so I could be on my laptop in the middle of the dining room, planning things out for when everything opens back up, right? And that's what ended up happening. I mean, eventually things opened back up, and when they did, it's just like the floodgates opened. Mind you, I totally forgot the biggest part. So my brother is running Jerusalem Cafe on the corner there. And, of course, they have, they had all those government PPP loans or whatever. I opened up a month before COVID, basically. I didn't qualify for anything.
I didn't either.
They want your last year's taxes.
Yeah.
What last year's taxes? I didn't have a business back then. And so that really sucked. Because they're like, oh yeah, this is a good cushion. We'll able to keep the staff. We're able to stay open. And I'm like, fuck, what do I do?
Yeah.
So again,
some of that over here.
Yeah, right. Oh my God. But anyway, we made it through. And then it opened up, and it just got busy. And then we hired more staff, and it used to be like, oh, 2 people can run this restaurant. Then it gets busier. Oh, okay, we need 3 people. Now it's even busier. We need 4 people. And then now it's 6 people to run a shift. You know what I'm saying? And then, sure enough, we get to a point where we're like, okay, we're doing the math. The kitchen can only do so much volume. So we need to take next door over. So we go ahead and we take next door over. We knock out some walls. We make the kitchen bigger. Now all of a sudden we can serve, we can run basically 2 tickets at the same time versus just one prep line. And so then that helped us. And then we opened up the ice cream section. And then, so now, here we are to a point where, I'm seeing everything happen. And my wife is like, oh yeah, we're doing it. And we start with a year into it, I was like, we're going to start franchising. And so I didn't know much about it. And so I started researching on how to become, a franchise, what the legal requirements are, what do you have to do. And, you start meeting all these lawyers and everything is like, you pay to play, right? Oh, yeah, sure, I'll meet with you. Here's the consultation. Here's $500. Oh, you don't want to be a franchise. Why not? Because franchising is too complicated. This is what my lawyer, or a lawyer, was telling me. Franchising is too complicated.
Can I have my $500 back?
Yeah. Well, what should I do? Oh, you should do licensing. Well, what's the difference? Well, with licensing, there's not so many requirements as far as, obligations as a franchisee. I don't have to register in certain states. I'm just licensing out my name, but if something happens, like, they can't come back and say, oh, you didn't do this and this and this for me. Whereas we're franchising, like, I'm required to do training. I'm required to do all these things to make sure that because it's an investment for that person. And so as an investment, I have to fulfill what I'm promising to them, right? And I can't overpromise and underdeliver and so on and so forth. And so in my head, I was like, licensing just seems like, kind of a cheap way to do things, but it's not the right way to do things. You don't hear about, a Taco Bell license. You hear about a Taco Bell franchise. And he's right, because licensing would have cost me all of $1,200 to do, right? It's just a contract, and then you kind of just find people to license your name. Franchising was about, it cost me about, all in about $60,000 to do. So mind you, I'm a year into it, just getting out of a pandemic. We had when we were doing good, we had some money saved up, right? I haven't even recouped construction costs. I recouped some of it, but then now I have this money, and I'm like, okay, do I go buy something nice for me, a new car, whatever it is, or do I, pay off some credit cards, or do I just double down on the business? And I was like, yeah, I'm going to double down. And so we spent that $60,000. We got the lawyers to do our FDDs. We did all of our marketing material for, how to promote this. We did our operating manual. And sure enough, the day we get finalized FDDs done as a franchise, we sign our first franchisee 2 days later.
I bet the wife liked that. I bet that was.
She did.
That was a big win.
It's, you know what? It's like, it was, she was obviously, yeah, she was, we were both happy. I was, the employee I shouldn't say that. The person we franchised to was actual former employee of ours. So this guy was with us, and we did a video with him, Ryan. He worked for us during that pandemic. He was the 3rd employee I hired. And, he was a good guy. He's a young kid. He's always wanted to he wants to learn things. College wasn't for him, and me and you were just talking about that earlier about kids and not wanting to go to college anymore. But his mom had been a cafeteria lady forever, and so she's always worked in kitchens, whether it be at a school district or at KU hospital or whatever it is, and she wanted to kind of set him up, and so she saw how much he wanted to do it. And he told me about it, and I was like, well, we're franchising right now, so technically we could do it. And he was like, yeah, I want to do it. So he goes to his mom. His mom, 20 years, she worked at the same place. She quits her job, cashes out her 401k, and trusts her son and me, essentially, that this is going to work out. And she's freaking out. I felt like she's coming to me. She's like, this is going to work, right? I'm like, I'm going to treat this place like listen, I want it to work just as bad as you do, because this is setting the stage for all the other franchises, right?
Yeah.
So everything that I didn't build the way I wanted to build in my location, I was going to make sure we were going to do it there from the first time, so that there's no trial and error, because I kind of figured out most of that stuff from my place. And so we really took our time with that one. And yeah, they're open, they're doing great. So
I think that's
where we're at right now.
a pretty solid story too. Like, you're going to have
Yeah.
people that come to you that have millions of dollars that are like, hey, I want to throw like 4 franchises over here.
Yeah.
I'm just watching the books on them all. Like, I have managers that are running everything. I'll have my construction crews in, knocking it all out. And then you have the son that comes with his mom. He's like, you know what, we're putting our life up against this. Like, that's, I feel like, the entrepreneurial like spot
Sure.
that he himself, like, and what his mom has done for him is going to change their future. That, like you said, he will build something for his kids. And talk about it all the time. Like, you go to law school and you come out and you become an attorney. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, or being a doctor or anything, like, or being a sales manager, but what do you give to your kids?
Exactly.
Like,
yeah.
you just tell them to go try to do the same thing. Like, you get, I guess if you end up getting high enough where you own your own firm and things like that, makes sense. But it's also like,
Even that requires entrepreneurial
like, it's
talent
still,
to own your own firm. Like,
Yeah.
at this point, you're a businessman. You're not a
Yeah.
lawyer, right?
and I think that's a pretty, and they had all the trust in you.
That for me was like, why I can't fail. Like, I literally, I would like, for me, if I failed, it's on me, right? But I these people trusted me, to do this, and I mean, basically, I couldn't fail them, right? And so now it's more pressure, right? But I'm there every day. I'm checking their food cost. I'm training and retraining and just making sure that it's working. I'm checking to see if they're, getting enough orders online. Are they being seen? Did they turn their open sign on? Like, I'm just like, I'm everywhere, right? I'm just making sure that they succeeded, and they are actually. He called me yesterday and said, hey, I'm ready to open up another place. He wants to open up a second location. So we're getting ready to have that conversation. So it should be good. I'm a little worried, but just, it's so quick, right? Same, but he's doing a great job. I mean, his team's good. Their reviews are great. The food's great. So I'm excited for them.
Which I think a lot of people fear, like, scale, and they fear, like, speed.
Yeah.
Which I feel like a lot of times people that fear that are people that are out of control. That people don't understand their processes. They don't understand all of really how their company runs. Like, when you understand how your company runs, you understand your processes, your procedures, and how to scale. Scalability is not fearful. And I think, like, when you start running that, like, you understand your processes, you'll take that pressure on. That pressure is something like, I thrive with it. I love having it. Sure. Like, the more people that count on me, like, the better. And it's like, I want that. But I feel like when we started, I have that forefront of people here. I have it with business owners all over Kansas City. And it's just like, and we talk about how we're like, well, we could go back to the car business. Like, that's not really an option. Like, you say that, like, in the beginning, that's like your sales tactic to,
yeah,
like, that's
close the wife.
That's what I was telling Madison. She's like, do you really like it? She was the one that was like pushing me to go do something. She's like, I just want you to be happy in whatever you do. And I'm like, well, worst case, I could go do this. But I'm like, the day that I put out that I was doing this, I'm like, well, no fun going back now. Like, how long has that location been open?
So Bannister location had this past November was 1 year. So they just a year and a month. And he's ready for location 2 right now. I mean, that's a cool thing. Like, it was just, obviously, I think we built a pretty good brand and name in Westport. And so when it opened up over there, by the time they opened, I think we had, I mean, it's not a lot, but for me, there's no fake followers, right? We got 700 followers on our Instagram. And just to be able to say, hey, location 2 is here, and just to see the people, oh my God, you're closer to me now. I don't have to drive to Westport. I don't have to worry about parking. There's a drive-through. You get what I'm saying? That obviously helped a lot. The menu, obviously is the second thing that helps. When you go on Instagram and you start doing all this targeted marketing for a unique item that you don't see a lot of in Kansas City. I mean, sure, people serve chicken and waffles, but they don't have it 8 different ways like we do. And they don't have these loaded fries like we do.
And it's never their specialty. It's just like a thing.
It's a menu item, right? It's there, yeah, whether it's a brunch spot or whatever it is. But, I mean, this is all we do, right? And it's you just don't see places like that. So I think that kind of helps us and help them, and it's awesome to see. As far as scalability, we were talking about that. For me, I think the scariest part for me is getting comfortable, right?
Yep.
Even there's been recent times where I felt comfortable and I get frustrated. I'm just like pacing back and forth. And my wife automatically, what's wrong? Like, she knows. And I'm just like, we're not growing fast enough. Like, we're not doing, like, I need to do, like, and I start taking on these projects and then she's like, well, why are you doing it? Like, focus on one thing at a time or whatever. But it's just, you can't, right? I just don't want to get, I'm comfortable right now. I tell her I could stop right now. We're making good money. I don't have to do anything, right? The restaurant kind of runs itself. And I find myself like just sitting there like, no, we need more. And so putting that pressure on always helps you perform when you put a lot more on your table.
And I think entrepreneurs, like, I'm the same way. Like, I find happiness in progression. Yeah. Like, I am the happiest when we're scaling, when we're doing all these things. Like, I eat, sleep, breathe it. And I know some people are like, that's just too much. Like, when is enough? Like, and I'm not searching for some ceiling of like financial spot. It's almost like playing a game of Monopoly. Like, you just want to be the best. And like, I feel like there's something like inside of certain people that just has that, like, unless I become the top marketing company of the world, like, that is the stopping, like, that is where I'll step out. But until then, it's just a driving factor of like, progression is always in front of us. Moving forward is always something that we're bred that way coming up as kids until the day you leave high school or the day you leave college. And then that's like when that line's drawn in the sand. Hey, you're done. Now you get to go somewhere and do the same shit for 40 years until you retire.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know why they think that's like your stopping point. And they teach you that in college. They teach you that in high school. Like, hey, we were just talking before, they're teaching the same shit in high school that they were in the 70s.
Yeah.
Like, progression is something that needs to happen in schools, needs to happen in the workforce. There's just progression everywhere. And just moving that needle forward is where I feel like I find, like, I don't know, value and like feel that movement.
For sure. Because, I mean, the way I see it in business in general, like, if you're not progressing, you're gonna fail. It's just a matter of time, right? It takes, when my dad's restaurant goes, he ran it for 30 years. The year 30, when my brother took over, because my dad, we just did super old school, right? There was no POS system, right? You couldn't log in and see what sales were for the year. Like, it just didn't exist, right? There was boxes of receipts that you just had to add up with a calculator. So, my brother takes over on that year 30. So he gets a POS system on year 30 at the old location. And I think they did, I don't even know, maybe $600,000 in sales that year. And then they move locations, and just moving, I'm talking half a block, right? And you go from 600,000 to 2 million in sales a year. You know what I'm saying? And then for us, just the progression, we're doubling. Like, I can go back from year one to now, and year one, we did, if you do $40,000 a month in sales, I'm just like, oh my God, like, that's so busy, right? We did, because the month before we did 20, right?
Yeah.
And then now I look at like 40 and I'm just like, it's a week's worth of work right there. Like, you know what I mean? It's just, it becomes easier, even though it's harder, right? More stuff is coming, but it just becomes easier. So standing in place, eventually there's going to be somebody that's going to come in. There's going to be another competitor, or something's going to happen that will give you a run for your money. And you're either already progressing or you're going to fall behind and people are going to forget about you. And that's the problem with being comfortable with things, is you have to constantly just keep pushing the envelope and coming up with new ideas, whether it's being innovative, whether it's being more resourceful, or whether it's doubling down and getting another location and hiring people. And at this point, it's not just about me. It's about, Ryan and his mom and them becoming successful, and anybody else who wants a franchise, or even my employees. I have 3 employees right now at Westport that are lined up to run other Chick-In Waffles for me when we decide to open up more locations. So I'm priming them for that and prepping them for that so that they can go ahead and I can just drop them in that store and everything's going to be exactly the same, and they'll be able to operate it and obviously make more money and make a career out of it. So,
I was going to say something. I blanked hard on
What
that.
were you going to say? Bring one to the Northland? Because that's what I was going to say.
He laughed at us.
No, they listen. Everything's on the table right now, especially Kansas City. Originally, Kansas City, I wanted to keep for myself, right? And just because I have a corporate store in Kansas City, our actual corporate-owned location in Westport, so why would I want to bring in other franchisees, to compete with my corporate store? But then I realized it's such a unique type of food that, like, you can open up in different neighborhoods and still do well. And I think our South Kansas City location with Ryan was a test to that, because really Kansas City is not that big of a city. I mean, this place is all of 8 miles away, but we don't deal with the same customers, and we're both doing just fine. So I think, putting one in Shawnee or putting one up north or putting one in Overland Park or Independence, which is coming soon now, it'll work.
Man, what a blessing that the lockdown was for you, though, to have that time to just get all of those processes laid out and really refine what you guys are doing.
Definitely. I think if we didn't have that, I probably wouldn't have been on the computer figuring out that marketing to the extent that I did, or the online ordering, and I just would have been solely relying on the walk-through traffic, because that worked for us month 1. If we didn't have that locked on, it probably would have worked month 2 and month 3, and who knows where it would be, but I don't think we would be where we're at today.
I think a lot of people discount. I mean, we deal with this all day, every day. I mean, we live in the digital space. That's what our company does. And we have certain business owners that are adapting, that we see crazy growth from, that are seeing the trends in market. And realistically, what we do, people around here think that we have this like newfound talent. I'm like, no, we're just fucking 5 years behind here in the Midwest.
Yeah.
Like, companies in California, Utah, Texas,
Killing
Florida,
it.
you see these multi-millionaires all over the place, but they don't even start a business plan without how they're going to market to acquire business. And it's like 99% of that starts in the digital space of having a website, having your Instagram, your Facebook, Google My Business, using it properly, getting reviews, doing your SEO work, optimizing, doing all these different things. And people just like open up the doors in the Midwest, don't do a single thing digitally, and they're like, we don't have any customers, like, because you're not doing anything. And it's like, I feel like coming from the automotive space, we're bred like to understand the importance of that.
Sure.
And that's why it's,
Especially in Kansas City, especially with GM freaking franchise dealers, just because we have so many Chevy stores within like 3 miles of each other. It's the same car, right? It's different with restaurants because it's different food and whatnot, but you're dealing with the same product from here and 3 miles away. So how are you going to stand out? And then they start marketing, we have a better service department and we have a better free warranty that we give you. And then just, that's what they do. But speaking of California, right, from a restaurant perspective, I get on Instagram or TikTok or whatever it is, and all these restaurants that are independents, I'm not talking about big chains, but they all have 30, 40, 50, 100,000 followers on all these social media platforms. In my head, I'm like, how the hell are they getting these? And it really is it's California, right? Forget the fact that they have a lot more population density than we do. It's, because at the end of the day, they're online. These people can be in Japan for all I know, the followers, right? But their marketing is all consistent across all these channels. Everybody's consistently posting every day their food or something catchy, and I think that's where they're getting their followers. And that's when I noticed that, and I noticed that everyone's posting essentially the same content, just geared towards their business. That's where I started wanting to explore, how do I do this? And I tried to DIY it, right? There's just not enough time in the day. I would post once every 3 weeks, and it wouldn't be like a thoughtful post. It would be, I walk by, oh, that looks nice. I like that. And I take a picture of it and post it right away, right? And it would just be a random time. It'd be like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, not planning anything. I'm coming up with the hashtags as I'm posting it. And if I got, 24 likes or 50 likes, I'm like, yeah, cool. I got 50 likes. But I'm not figuring out what the analytics are or how many people are seeing or how many are followers versus non-followers or any of that. And fate would have it, we come across MMG, and now I look just like those other pages, right? Everything's getting posted every day. There's hashtags. It's good quality content. Everything looks good and presentable. It's consistent across the page. So that helps the brand, right? We don't look like we're just some mom and pop operation.
But you said something pretty important there, which that is why you will franchise out and have 50 locations and everything. You say brand.
Yeah.
99% of business owners never even put the word brand in their fucking vocabulary. Like, when I started this, there is a brand image that we have. That we don't look like other marketing people in Kansas City. Everyone here I'll go have drinks with at night, like, it is a group of people that is a team, but it's very much brand oriented. We don't smile in our photos. Everything's black and gold, complete opposite of everyone else. But that's the brand image. But it's something that's so different from everyone. And it's like you said, the brand image looks correct across the board. And I see companies that I can call them and I'm like, hey, you need to stop paying 3 different marketing companies to post on your page. How do you know we have 3 different marketing companies? I'm like, you can tell all 3 of the companies on exactly what they're posting. But it's you can see this just when you go to scale, and once again, marketing is a process that can be scaled across multiple locations, that it should look uniform all across the country. It's not like you get on a Taco Bell website or a social platform or a Panda Express or any franchisee that you see out there that's really done well nationwide. Their stuff looks uniform everywhere. If it's in Kansas City or if it's in Utah or if it's in Dallas.
Sure.
Or
it's
whatever.
got to.
It has to. And I think that's very big on what you're doing. And you see that, not even recognizing that you see that. But once again, the car space is really good about doing that. The GM wants all their stuff to look the same.
Yeah.
And Ford wants all their stuff to look the same. To where then we're bred that in the car business for so long that when I started this, I just understood brand image, second nature, not even doing it on purpose. And that I think you're doing the exact same thing. Hey, I want that brand out there. The more I'm in front of people, the more times people are seeing us, all these things. It may not be today. Somebody may be watching it that lives in Iowa. And then they're down here for a Chiefs game, and they're like, hey, I got to hit that Chick-In Waffle place.
Happens all the time. All the time.
Think about the ranch place in St. Louis. There's a I don't even know what the place is fucking called. They just have a bunch of ranch. And they blew up on social on one video. Now everyone from Kansas City, when they're like, you gotta hit the ranch place. So I go there one time, there's a line, a block up the street. I'm like, not going there. But it's just something like that. It takes one video at one given time.
Yep.
That 12 months from now, one video is going to go viral. And then you're going to have people lined up out the door every single weekend when there's any event here that pulls a crowd in.
Yeah, no, we get people from Oklahoma, surrounding states that are here for either some basketball tournament for their kids, or they're here to see a Chiefs game, and they're repeat customers. I could track that stuff, which is pretty cool because on our POS system, I can look up based off of the card, put the zip code in. Oh, these people came from Oklahoma. They've eaten here 3 times, right? I'm like, okay, that's cool. So, and that's kind of how we figure out where our best locations are going to be to open up, is at least in the Kansas City area, because it gives you the hot spots where people are traveling. There was a lot of people traveling from Independence coming to Westport. So we're like, all right, we're definitely going to open up an Independence, and that's our next location that's coming up. But it's also cool when you get people that you always dream of walking through your doors, and then they do. So we've had plenty of celebrities that have come through. And that's always cool because they'll give you a shout out or whatever, and that's awesome. We have our little logo, Chick-In Waffle logo. That's, I guess, our selfie spot where we get all of our local KC celebs to take pictures of, and that's kind of how we sold our Phoenix franchise, which is kind of neat. But we had a multi-Grammy award-winning producer who's originally from Kansas City, and his buddy, who's from Phoenix, that came through Chick-In Waffle and then decided to franchise, and so we're getting ready to open one up in Phoenix beginning of this 23. But yeah, so it's branding's definitely important, and making sure that everything is exactly the way you want it to be seen, right? There's plenty of times where I'll go and I'm like, if I see a logo that's not Chick-In Waffle, it bothers me. That's in my restaurant anyway. Yeah. So like for the longest time we had, our cups didn't have, they had Coke on them, right? And that's just because our original supplier, we used to have Chick-In Waffle cups, and then pandemic prices and supply chain issues, we're like, okay, this is not sustainable. We can't do these anymore. So we start selling the Coke paper cups that say Coke on them, and it just bugged me for the longest time. So we finally just lined ourselves up with a new vendor, and we were back to our Chick-In Waffle branded cups. They cost more than Coke cups, but it's the brand, right? Somebody's walking by and has it in their hand, they're going to see Chick-In Waffle, whether it's the Chick-In Waffle shirts.
I like the jerseys.
Thank you. But even our other staff Chick-In Waffle shirts, like when people want to buy them, it makes me happy. But honestly, just come to me and tell me, hey, I want that shirt. I'll give it to you for free. It's advertising. Just take it. Just wear it. I walked into Costco the other day. I'll never forget this. I'm wearing. I always wear Chick-In Waffle everywhere I go. If whether I'm out of town, I'm flying, I'm here, going to the bank, whatever it is, I'm always wearing Chick-In Waffle. And I walk into Costco, and I'm wearing my Chick-In Waffle hoodie and my Chick-In Waffle hat, and I literally walking through the aisle, and this guy just comes out of nowhere, and he's wearing the exact same outfit. He's wearing a Chick-In Waffle hoodie, Chick-In Waffle hat, and at first I was like, is this like an employee? Like I'm looking at him, and I'm like,
right now?
And then he just walks by me, he's like your hoodie, bro, and I'm like, yeah. And I don't think he knew who I was. I didn't.
Surely not.
It was funny.
So what's the Jaime and I we all talked about this when we were up filming last time. What was it, last week? On the waffles.
Yeah.
They're not I didn't know that there's different like areas of waffles in the world.
Apparently. Yeah. No, there is.
So I've always had Belgian waffles.
Yeah.
Not what you have.
No, I have bubble waffles, but the correct term, so they're Hong Kong egg waffles. And basically the biggest difference from an appearance-wise is they got bubbles instead of like those square honeycombs that you would see on a waffle. From a ingredients perspective, there's a lot more eggs in the batter than a traditional Belgian waffle, which is what gives it that fluffiness and that airy, crispy.
I know when I tried it, I'm normally not a big waffle person. I tried that, I was like, holy shit. I'm like, why have I never had one of these like strange looking waffles that look like this? I'm like, never even seen one before.
And we get two types of people that come in. There's the ones that are like, oh, this is not what I was thinking of when it waffle. And there's other people like, this is the best freaking waffle I've ever had. It's so hard to get criticism, but you need it, right? And I quickly realized that you can't please everyone.
No way.
But the business model's working, and I'm happy with it. Wife's happy with it, and our customers that we have are happy with it. So we're just gonna keep going with it, and we'll see where it takes us.
I like it. I like it a lot. Jaime, what do you think? So Jaime is like kind of the lead on all the content creation, things like that. What do you look future of Chick-In Waffle, all of the content, everything like that? I know he gets a bunch thrown on him every week on the Chick-In Waffle account.
Man, honestly, dude, I think it's just a matter of time before one of these just like pops. Like the food's phenomenal. It looks great on video. And now that we're doing more like the personal branding stuff, like with him like being in the face of and stuff like that, like
everyone
franchise is gonna blow up. Like
what were we doing last week? I totally forgot that half of our filming was done at Aristocrat.
Yeah.
So they picked up a new Chick-In Waffle rig.
Yeah, new catering rig.
Catering video.
Yeah.
Is this going to come out before or after that video?
Good question. When is this coming out?
This will be on Monday.
Monday? I'll get it out.
It'll probably be out before.
Yeah, I'll get it out before.
Okay, so we can talk about it?
Yeah, we can talk
about it. Yeah. Just for everyone watching, this is literally my first podcast. All right, these guys had to talk me into doing this whole personal branding thing, but I think
it's working.
It's working because the one video where the first time I get in front of a camera, you saw how many bloopers we had to do, but the one time I get in front of a camera and we post it, and it performs better than any of the other ones that we did food. And we're talking $100 worth of food to shoot this video, but the one where I'm talking gets the most views. So here I am, guys. There'll be a lot more of me. But last week we got a call from our CPA. It's the end of the year, so tax time. You know how that goes.
Got to write some stuff off.
Definitely have to write some stuff off. So we gave out bonuses to our employees. That's obviously first, and then I'm digging through emails trying to find receipts, and the CPA is like, listen, we need to write some stuff off. This isn't like we're not looking for a couple thousand here. So I'm like, okay. So she's like, do you need a work truck, like a catering van? And I'm like, yes, we need a catering van. So it's about time, we splurged a little bit. So we went to Aristocrat and we picked up a 2020 G-Wagon.
Catering van.
Catering van.
That's awesome.
Yes,
Yeah.
we can definitely move some chicken in there.
That video will be dropping this week, or it'll be out before this. But yeah, it's on that personal branding. I think that is, I preach it to people all the time. It took me a long time to take my own advice. That for the longest time, like probably the first, I don't know when did we start this?
The podcast?
Yeah.
Was it March?
March was like the first time I got in front of a camera. So before that, it was still images. There's photos of us out there, but that was it. Like MMG content consists of going out and taking a bunch of pictures.
Now you're posting selfies every day.
Now
you're going into work
every day.
Trucking into work.
I know, but it's crazy like how many people like watch that I have. I was telling them this morning, I have 5 to 10 people a day reach out to me on Instagram. Like, don't own businesses or anything. They're just like, hey, keep up doing what you're doing. Like, we see it every day. Like, I have people jump in our coaching group. Like, I have people reaching out about marketing just all the time. And it was like crazy how fast that like shift. And I'm sitting here like thinking in my head, I'm like, okay, what if I would have done this the first 2 years we were open? Like, first 2 years, I was coasting compared to what we're doing now. And now it's just like full speed. But that getting in front of the camera, I think I really downplayed how important that was and how fast, like, we're doing with jewelry companies. We're doing it with, like, everyone we work with. I'm like, if you can put someone in front of the camera, like, I'll bet on that all day long.
Agreed. No, it's definitely takes some getting used to, but it's cool to be able to put my story out there. Hopefully, whether they want to franchise or just open up their own business, whatever it is, if I can just contribute a little bit, that could get some information from me or some knowledge. That's cool. And I don't know. I look forward to just dropping a little bit more videos about, like, just from the restaurant perspective, like how we scout our locations, what we look for, how we, price our menus, figure out food costs, look for vendors, what we look for, stuff like that. And then maybe it'll just help somebody in the future that's either opening a restaurant or has a restaurant that's struggling a little bit.
Yeah. I think that's, I think content, everything that you're doing is 100% going in the right direction and
awesome.
Rocking and rolling. But I think we're getting our times put up and we hit right about it. Any final thoughts?
That's an incredible story. I didn't
Thank
know.
you.
I knew just part of it, so it was really cool to hear all of that.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's you've done a phenomenal job at everything you've done from.
Thank you, guys. We're just getting started, but I couldn't do it without you guys. Like,
Yeah.
we were 2 months into it, but hopefully we got more and more work to do between.
Yeah, we definitely have a lot more work to do. Yep. But I think scalability is, it's all over the radar, like you said.
We're gonna take over the world.
Exactly.
Yes, sir.
Chicken waffles for everyone. So, thank you for coming on again.
Thank you.
That is the M3 podcast, and I don't know who's on the sticks, but I'm going to key Logan.
Thanks for listening to the M3 Podcast. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. Want to learn more? Check us out on Instagram at Moss Marketing Group, on Facebook at Moss Marketing 58, or on our website at mossmarketinggroup.com.